Hello, my name is Laketha, and I'm going to be presenting to you my presentation today, and it's going to be on Mary Wollstonecraft. And who was Mary Wollstonecraft? Mary Wollstonecraft, she was a female English writer. She was born April the 27th, 1759, in London, France. In her earlier days, she was a teacher. She worked as a governess and as a translator for a London publisher in 1788. While working as a translator, she became acquainted with the group of political writers and reformer known as the English Jacobins. She also met philosopher William Goodwin, whom she would later marry. Their union awarded her the opportunity to give birth to a daughter named Mary Shelley, who would also become a writer and wrote Frankenstein. Mary died September the 10th, 1797 in London after giving birth to their daughter. Mary was regarded as a great influence for the development of feminist politicians and feminist analysts of literary representation of women. Some of her work included educational texts. She wrote 2 novels, book translations, an account of a French Revolution, a travelogue of her journey in Scandinavia, and political tracts of Vindication of the Rights of Men, written in 1790, and a Vindication of the Rights of Woman, written in 1792. Her extensive body of work to this day participate in contemporary debates in education, social mores, philosophies, and theology. I was particularly drawn to this particular verse in a vindication of the rights of woman. This particular paragraph was it says, I may be accused of arrogance. Still, I must declare what I firmly believe, that all writers who have written on the subject of female education and manners from Rosier to Dr. Gregory have contributed to render women more artificial, weak characters than they would otherwise have been, and consequently more useless members of society. And I was particularly drawn to that because it took me back to her time where women wasn't really viewed as important in society. Women was downplayed more so. Their duty or their responsibility was in the home. And be it so, maybe that's according to those times, that's how they believe. But rightfully so, if that's how they believe. Mary believed that still did not mean that a woman shouldn't be educated. That woman, even though her role could be in the home as a mother, as a wife, she still should be entitled to be educated. And that an educated woman would benefit the family as a whole. That mother could teach her child, that mother could understand her husband better, so the family would benefit from an educated woman in a household, or that wife could benefit from the husband could benefit from the wife if she was educated. And also on another level, women, she also argued that marriage was no different than prostitution, which is deep, because if you look at it from her stance and you just think about what she's saying, she's really telling the truth. I agree that marriage is no different than prostitution, because in those times you was teaching women to depend on a man and she also stated in her line that when a woman lacks education, they become victims to blind obedience, enslaved to men. So she's comparing marriage to that of prostitution. Then she's saying that when you don't have the education, that you become a blind victim, because your dependency becomes from that man. So in sense of being a prostitute, the only difference is we, in her time as women, was trained, you're born a girl, so we know that as a girl you're going to eventually have to get married, and you're going to have to expect this husband to take care of you. And so on that level, that was your role. You tend to the house. This man take care of you. But in another sense, she's looking at it like, okay, what's the difference than a woman who decides, you know what, I'm capable of taking care of myself. And if I have to render my services to a man and he pays me in return, I'm taking care of myself. So how are we any different? Because we're both doing this for survival. My survival is coming from being a housewife or a mother, and he in return taking care of me. But a prostitute's survival is coming from rendering services to a man. Either way it go, we're using that man. So the both of them are in comparison are alike. So I thought that was rather fascinating. And I also thought of it from a biblical standpoint, how if you look at the Bible, it often talks about a woman should not exalt authority over a man, and that a woman should the husband the woman the husband will be the head, and he's the head of the woman, and that a woman should keep silence, and if she's gonna learn, that she should do so at home. So women have always seemed to be downplayed in society, from what I even see, even from the biblical days. Women place was just at a different level than my man was. But I appreciate Mary so much for her stance, because her speaking up and painting this picture and letting people know, hey, we're more than just wives. I mean, we deserve education. And so, in her doing so, I mean, and another thing about the Bible that I think about, how it speaks in one term, it was saying about women, being the weaker vessel, or that the man is, the head of the woman. But then it says that when a man leave his father and his mother and he finds his wife and they marry, that they're no longer two flesh, they become one. So in a sense, if they become one, then why can't this woman have an education also? So I can understand why Mary would demand that women be equally educated, just like the man is. Because if we become in one, then educate me like my man is educated, so to speak. And not just that, but in a sense, a woman dependency shouldn't just be directly dependent on that man to take care of herself. Because back there in those days, a lot of women was left devastated, because if something happened to that man, they was incapable of taking care of themselves or their children. So her argument was a woman should be able to maintain and be knowledgeable enough to get a job if necessary, to work in the working society. She should be knowledgeable of what's going on, how things are operating. If need be, she should be able to go and make a way to supply or provide for her child or herself. And I mean, I agree that we should. And I am so thankful to Mary for her stance, for her writing, for reading her literature that she's left behind. Because as a woman today, because of her, we have a right to, we can be married or we can be single, and we can still provide for ourselves. We don't have to marry and depend on a man. I mean, we are entitled to education now. We are entitled to jobs now, although we might not get the equal pay that a man get, but yet and still we are able to wake up and decide, I'm going to school, I'm going to get an education, and in getting this education, we are allowed to pursue a world where we're able to get a home if we want a home. We're able to get a home if we want a home. We're able to take care of a child without a husband. I mean, we can be single parents now. We don't necessarily have to have a husband to take care of our family. So because of her, we're in a different place in society. And it's because of her stance. It's because of her paving the way, sort of speaking up and giving us women a voice that was at one time unheard of. Women was not allowed to speak. And I'm thankful today, and I appreciate her for just taking that stance. And I hope that you have enjoyed this presentation. I hope that you understand what I'm saying and where I'm coming from. I mean, because as a woman, we all really should appreciate what Mary has done, and the gift that she has given us, the ability to speak up and the ability to demand that we are equally treated fairly in a society that otherwise viewed us as children in one point in time, in a society that otherwise didn't value us as women enough to think that we should be allowed to vote, or that we can take care of other things other than a household. So on that note, I want to take the time to thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you got something from it. Thank you. Bye.